mentality that I was less than. And it had nothing to do with the person I was inside. It was just the circumstance where I was born. That was my thought. That was my belief. And as many of us that grew up in my kind of environment it was, you will get your just reward once you died and went on to glory. And I was just basically stuck there, that I was just going to be poor for the rest of my life. And so, and let me bounce this to you, because when I'm talking poverty, I am talking the financial poverty, but I'm also talking about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual poverty, because poverty it's an insidious thing. It's a huge thing. And that's why I think it's one of the greatest fears, because it weaves itself throughout everything that we do. So I had this mentality that I was poor, and I almost deserved to be poor, that it was my lot in life. And, I was taught that by very loving parents and just the society and their environment. So the fear of poverty, once I thought I was getting away from poverty, I just didn't want to be poor anymore. And so it consumed me. And one of the things that I learned through Napoleon Hill, I learned through the Word of God, I learned that if you whatever you focus on, that's what you will receive. So instead of focusing on wealth and abundance and beauty and love and just everything is there for me, the source is there, I was fearing that I was going to always be poor. And that if I didn't stay in front of it, I was going to be poor. So I was running away from poverty. But as Napoleon Hill said, if you focus on what you don't want versus what you do want, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get what you don't want. And that's what I spent the majority of my life going through. And it's a constant struggle. I tell people every day, Steve honors me all the time. Like, man, you've arrived, you're doing it, you got your purpose, you're blessed. I am blessed and I'm favored. But I tell you what, every now and again, the gremlins of doubt and fear will sneak up, and I have to combat it. I combat it through study. I combat it through surrounding myself with like-minded people. I combat it with being in groups and environments like Design Your Empowered Gear. But more than that, I get around people that have an abundance mentality that help me understand, hey, you know what? There's a lot out there in life. We just got to go get it. And it's just there. So the fear of poverty, if you struggle with it, if you suffer with it, it's something that you have to identify and face, because it's insidious, it's dangerous, and honestly, it's a lie. A good buddy of mine says that fear is, false evidence appearing real. It is a real thing if you let it be real. So in a nutshell, that is what the whole fear of poverty is and what it'll allow you to do. So let me ask you a question. Steve, I'll ask you this since you're there, and I hope some people answer this for themselves that's listening to this. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew you were supposed to do something and you were frozen and didn't do it?
Lefford?
Yes, sir.
Lefford, you're amazing what you just asked me. Let me just say this to you. You said that fear of poverty is your life story. Well, the question that you asked me is my life story. And I'll give you the example, and I'll do it kind of quick because I don't want to take up time on the show today. I want you to do most of what you want to impart here, and I want to confirm it. Lefford, I knew my whole life from the time I was a teenager till I was in my early 30s, a period of, like 16, 17 years, give or take. I knew that the way that I was doing things was wrong and that I should not do this. Every time I went out as a teenager and drank and did things, like the teenagers do, where you go out to, the football games and you drink and whatever, a lot of teenage drinking when I was young. But every time I was doing things that were immoral conduct or all the other things that come under things that are not proper, I always knew. Every time I was out there with crowds of people when I was in my college years and dropped out of college and all the party and all the different things that I was involved in that were wrong, all of those things, I always knew I was doing wrong, but I couldn't stop myself because I felt like it wasn't that big a deal. And sometimes I got really sad and down and lonely. and wish that I wouldn't be this way. And I would get disciplined for a while and stay off of whatever it was I was participating in, or stay away from whatever I was participating in. But then I would go back to it. And so the answer to your question is, have I ever known right from wrong but chosen wrong? I think that's what you asked me. And the answer is, yeah, Lefford, I spent years of my life not being able to do the right thing. And I always knew. God always talked to me. And that's the only reason that I'm here today, is because what you're talking about is the poem that was one of my greatest poems I've carried my whole life, Footprints to the Sand, where the guy finally complains, God, where were you? And he said, my son, those were my footprints carrying you. So I'm going to turn it back to you, but I think I answered your question.
And you did. And that is one of the symptoms of fear of poverty. When you know what to do and you do not. When you know what to do and you do not. I often say the biggest gap in life is not between what we know and don't know. It's what we know and what we don't do. And that's one of those symptoms of a fear of poverty, because it's a weird thing that we do to ourselves. And what that is we say, well, it's not that big a deal, or I know, but I'm not going to do it. That is that fear of loss, and that's that fear of poverty. And those are the things that sneak up on us and get us. I mean, even though you say that you knew what you were supposed to do, you didn't do it. Procrastination is one of those things where I'll wait and do it tomorrow, mañana. It's another symptom of the fear of poverty, where you're not doing the things that you could do. I mean, Steve, I'll be honest. This is how crazy I was with this whole fear of poverty thing. I'd save hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And back then that was a big deal. And even though you knew you had this money saved, I still wouldn't pay a bill. It would be really easy to pay a $15 or $20 bill that I wouldn't pay, and I'd let it compound and end up owing 2 to 3 months of payments when I had hundreds of dollars that I could pay it. Something in my mind said, if you have this nest egg of money over here, and so if the stuff hit the fan, you would never be poor. Now, there was a huge disconnect, because I'm not telling anybody don't save and don't put anything to the side, because that is true. You should do that, but you should also take care of your responsibilities. There are times, and many of you that are listening to this may have done this. They can have a savings account, or they can have mutual funds, and they can have money over here, but they got these rising credit card bills, and they're getting 1 or 2 or 3% on their investment, and they're paying 17, 18, 20% on credit cards. It's a fear of poverty that holds us into that place where we know we should be doing something, but what we're doing doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because we fear being in a situation where we're broke.
Lefford, and what you said, just so I can give you a thought, and what you just described is that it creates really, really bad, destructive habits.
Oh, yeah.
And you end up losing your credit, and it's a behavior. Your behavior is destroying who you are. And so I think that's what we're trying to impart about people is, how do you change this destructive behavior?
Well, you have to. The only way to really destroy the destructive behavior is to focus on what you want, not what you don't want. It's not that you want to not be poor. You know, I'm avoiding poverty. It's like I am seeking wealth. I'm seeking abundance. I'm seeking looking into the face of God. It's not, it's a different thing. If you focus on your fear versus focusing on your faith, you get that fear of poverty. You know what I mean? Think about it. If you sit there and believe, I, Lefford Fate, or I, Steve Copeland, have to do these things so I'm not poor. What are we saying? I need to do this to not be poor. Poor. You're thinking of poor. Now, if you say, I live in an abundant universe, I'm a king's kid, I'm the Father's favored, I can have whatever I work for and desire because he has promised that to me. Okay, think it that way, or thinking, I have to avoid this evil thing of poverty that's coming at me. There's a different feeling when you look at those two things.
let me just repeat Jeremiah 17:7-8, because it's exactly what you're saying.
Brother.
I read, but blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Because, but think about what you just said, Steve. Think about what you just said and how you said it. You do not fear when the drought comes. The drought will come.
It always comes.
All the tree does, it is connected to the source. The roots go deeper to connect to the source, to the stream, to the Father. Does that make sense? You are there. When you're close, dig deeper to what you want. Don't fear, don't worry about this whole, there's a drought. There's always a drought. But you have infinite intelligence, unlimited source, abundance.
It makes sense. It's all trusting in the Lord. That's how that scripture started. And that's what you're saying, is that, it's the storms of life are going to come. They're unavoidable. But when they come, if we have complete faith that we know, well, I just want to interject this and turn it back over to you. I'm going to do my best today because you're my guest, and I want to make sure that. Hey, here's what it is. When you trust the Lord, you don't have fear, and the secret is learn the ways of the Lord. Learn what he's trying to show us, and then you can trust him even more.
Well, see, Steve, and you're correct, but not correct, but correct. And one of the things that I found is just like the old saying that faith without works is dead. Faith with applied faith is the deal. Anybody can have faith. I remember a scripture. I don't know which one it is, so you'll have to correct me, and I'm sure you'll find it. If Donna's there, she could probably point to it right now. Well, they say everybody, when you say I believe in God or I have faith, everybody has faith. Everybody believes in God. Even the demons believe in God and tremble. So faith is nothing by itself. Applied faith, where you actually go into the work. The tree by the stream is digging in, searching and seeking towards the river, towards the stream. And that's what we should do. I shouldn't should on people, but that's what we should do. We know what our source is, and to strain towards that. Faith, knowing that when you connect, all things are possible for you. And so that to me is the biggest way to blow away this whole fear of poverty. And like I say, even though it sneaks up sometimes, because hey, I'm only human, you're only human. I know this, but I don't always do what I know. Many people talk about I know, so I should do. But like I said, I'm only human, so it slips up. But I think there's a difference. It's getting better because there's a fear and then there's a caution. I'm cautious now that if I don't do the things I'm supposed to do, I can find myself in a world of hurt. But if we do what we're supposed to do, everything is there for us. It's a beautiful thing that we take a step, we take man step. We take a man step, but God takes a God step. And how many of us know that his step is way bigger than ours, but we have to move forward first. Does that make sense, Steve?
Oh, Lefford, let me, it's perfect. It's James 2:19-24. You believe that there is one God. Good. Even the demons believe that, and they shudder. You foolish person, do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Was not our father Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. Lefford, Napoleon Hill, one of the ways to get rid of these fears is to take action. We can have stuff in our head all day long. It can be our thoughts, but without, he calls it appropriate action. And what he wants us to do, or that he advises us to do, is to have a plan. And even if it's not sound, it can always be modified so that we can modify our own patterns as we move forward. We have to have a motive. A motive.
Exactly. And this